Welcome back to Algebra 1. We are factoring trinomials, ax squared plus bx plus c. This is part 3 of our notes. So you should have the note sheet in front of you. And our first example here is 24x squared minus 22x equals negative 3. Today we're going to focus on solving. So last week we did learn how to solve, so we need to remember what to do. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make the equation equal to 0. Okay, so for us to make the equation equal to 0, in this case we have to add the 3 to both sides. Doing so now, we have 24x squared minus 22x plus 3 equals 0. Notice the 3 is not like terms with either the 24x squared or the 22, so we would not put it with any of those. And now we are going to factor it. So to factor it, we will multiply our 24 by our 3. 24 times 3 is 72. And now you list your factors of 72. 1 times 72, 2 times 36, 3 times 24, 4 times 18, 5 does not fit in there, 6 times 12, 7 does not fit in there, 8 times 9. And then we take a look, and here we want to find a factor that adds to give us 22. So the factor that adds to give us 22 here are 4 and 18. So we'll take this and we'll split our equation up. To add to give us a negative 22, they both have to be negative. So 24x squared minus 4x minus 18x plus 3, and then equals 0. Now we will group, so we need to make sure we change it to plus a negative. And then we can group our first two and our last two. Now we will take out the GCF. So the GCF of 24x squared and 4x would be 4x. 24 divided by 4 is 6. And we took one of the x's out, so we have an x left. 4x divided by 4x is 1. So 6x minus 1 is what we have left. GCF of 18x and 3 is 3. Our front term is negative, so we're going to take out a minus 3. Negative 18x divided by negative 3 is a positive 6x. 3 divided by negative 3 is a minus 1. 0. Now 6x minus 1s are the same, so that is our first parentheses, and our second one is what we had left of being 4x minus 3. So now here, this is where we need to recall what we talked about last week. What we talked about last week was something called the zero product property. Zero product property tells us that if we have two things that are being multiplied together to give us 0, one of them has to be 0. So here we have two things that are being multiplied together to give us 0, so one of them has to be 0. So the 6x minus 1 has to be 0, or the 4x minus 3 has to be 0. And now we solve it. First equation, we'd add 1 to both sides. So 6x is equal to 1, and then divide by 6. So x is equal to 1/6. Second equation, we'd add 3 to both sides. So 4x is equal to 3, and then divide by 4. So x is equal to 3/4. So here we have two solutions, 1/6 and 3/4. All right, so now we will do the second example. Second example, 2y squared equals y plus 1. First step, we need to get this equal to 0. So we would subtract our y and subtract our 1. That means we would have 2y squared minus y minus 1 equals 0. And now we factor it. So 2 times 1 is 2. The only factors are 2 of our 1 times 2. We want them to subtract to give us a negative 1. Subtracting to give us a negative 1y would have to be 1y minus 2y. That would be negative 1y. So we can split our equation up now. 2y squared plus 1y minus 2y minus 1 equals 0. So we're going to add the opposite so that we can group. Then we will group our first two terms and our last two. GCF of 2y squared and 1y is y, and we are left with 2y plus 1. GCF of negative 2y minus 1 would be a negative 1, and we are left with 2y plus 1. Still equals 0. 2y's plus 1's are the same, so that is now our first parentheses, and then we are left with a y minus 1. We're going to use our zero product property here again. So we have two things being multiplied together that are giving us 0, so one of them has to be 0. So 2y plus 1 has to be 0, or y minus 1 has to be 0, and we solve them both. So first equation, we subtract 1, so 2y equals negative 1. Divide by 2, so y is equal to negative 1/2. Second equation, we just have to add 1, so y is equal to 1. So two solutions here of y equals negative 1/2 and y equals 1. We have one more problem for today. Third example. 3x squared plus 15x plus 18 equals 0. I'm going to have you try this problem on your own. So right now, I'm going to want you to pause the video, and you're going to try it on your own. Okay, welcome back. You should have tried this on your own, so you should have two solutions. Let's see how you did. First up, when we factor this, notice that a 3 fits into all of those. So we could divide these all by 3 first. So 3, and then in parentheses, we'd have an x squared plus a 5x plus a 6 left, equals 0. Now, we want to factor the x squared plus 5x plus 6. Notice, because we have just a 1 in front of the x squared, this is going to factor pretty simply. The only way to get x squared is x times x. And then we look at our factors of 6. So factors of 6 are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. And we want the factors of 6 to add to give us 5. So that's 2 and 3. So we do plus 2 and plus 3. Then we just do a quick check to make sure we did it correctly. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. Yep, that works. So now we can use our zero product property. Notice here we have 3 things being multiplied together. So this tells us 3 can equal 0. X plus 2 should equal 0, or x plus 3 should equal 0. Does this make sense for 3 to equal 0? No, it does not. So we toss that solution out. If x plus 2 equals 0, we would subtract 2 from both sides, so x is negative 2. If x plus 3 equals 0, we'd subtract 3 from both sides, so x equals negative 3. So there would be our two solutions. Mr. Stevens will now hand out the worksheet for today. You will have the rest of today to continue working on it, and you will have tomorrow all day in class to work on any of the problems that you have received from this week. So from Monday, you had page 513, 10 through 20. From yesterday, you had a worksheet, and then from today, you also have a worksheet.